morning, dear students. Today I am going to take class on the topic constructors and destructors. So, constructor is a special type of member function of a class that is automatically called when an object is created. Okay, so the key features of constructors are same. Class name is same as the function name. It should not return any value, which is used to initialize the objects, and it is called automatically. Okay, so it is the syntax for constructor is the class name is the function name. Okay, so within the class, this is the class list of the parameters we can pass. Okay, so the C++ program for defining constructor within the class. This is the example for constructor class. Constructor called within the class. This is the constructor outside the class. Okay, here the constructor called from outside the class. So first I will explain the characteristics of constructor, then I will move on to program. Okay, so the name of the constructor, the characteristics is the name of the constructor name is same as class name. Okay, so the constructors are mostly declared in public section of the class. Though it can be declared in the private section of the class. Okay, so it should not return any value, and it is called automatically when the object is created, and it can overload the constructor also, cannot be declared virtual. Okay, and how the constructor different from normal member function. Already we have discussed about getter, setter, everything. Okay, so here the constructor is different from normal function in following way. The constructor has the same name as the class name itself. Default constructor don't have input arguments, but there are many types of different types of constructors are there. One is default constructor, copy constructor, and parameterized constructor. Okay, so default constructor do not have arguments. If you go for copy and parameterized constructor, have input arguments, and it should not return any value. The same point I have repeated. The constructor is automatically called when the object is created. Okay, so it must be placed in public section of the class. Okay, so this is the example for copy constructor. So I will explain the types of constructor. So default constructor, parameterized constructor, and copy constructor. Okay, default constructor doesn't have any parameter, but parameterized and copy constructor have some parameter. Okay, so I'll explain the simple program. So this is the program. Class student, in that data members are register number, name, and student fee, and public member function. So here I have used class name as the function name. So this is called constructor. Okay, so inside that constructor I am getting input from the user, roll number, name, and fee details. After that I am using another function to display the details. Okay, display to register number, name, and fee detail. Okay, so inside the main function I created object for that class. So once the object is created for the class, at that time the constructor will be called, and here the constructor student, this will be called, and we are getting input from the user. After that, using this object I am calling another member function display. So in display detail it will display the details of the student. Okay, so if I run this program, to run this program now. Roll number I have entered, name, displaying the details of the student. Okay, so the only thing is, so before that we have used getter setter function to initialize the input from the user. So in order to avoid that, we are using constructor. So once the object is created for that particular class, at that time the constructor will be called and the data will be initialized automatically. Okay, so this is the concept explained in constructor. Okay, so another example types of constructors are there: default constructor, parameterized constructor, and copy constructor. So I'll explain the, so here one more thing, we can call the constructor from outside the class. This is the example for calling constructor from outside the class. So only thing is we have initialize the constructor and the member function inside the class. After that, if we want to access the constructor and the member function outside the class, we must use the class name and scope resolution operator to access this constructor and member function. Already we have discussed previous example. So this is the method we can call the constructor from the outside the class. Okay, you can use the class name with scope resolution operator. Okay, this is the example for defining constructor outside the class. Okay, so this is a simple difference between defining constructor within the class, defining constructor outside the class. Okay, so here the only thing inside the class, in public access specifier, under public access specifier, we have mentioned only the member function and constructor, student and void display. Outside the class, we are defining everything. Okay, this is the concept of defining constructor within the class, defining constructor outside the class. Okay, so next one is copy constructor. Three examples have explained here to define the variation between default, parameter and copy constructor. So this is the example for default constructor. We are not passing any arguments here, so this is called default constructor. Okay, so in class construct, inside the public I am declaring data member and member function. So inside the constructor, class name is same as the constructor name. So I am assigning the value for A and B. Here in main function, I have created object for constructor this class. So once the object is created, it will call the constructor function, and the value will be initialized here. Okay. So if you take a parameterized constructor, you must pass some arguments for the constructor. Okay. So this is a class point. Point is a class name, and in private access specifier I have mentioned two variable x and y. In public, this is the constructor, the class name is same as the constructor name, and inside the constructor I am passing the arguments, two arguments, x1 and y1. So if you go for a main function, I am passing the arguments. Okay, so once the object is created, at that time passing the arguments. Once the object is created, it will call the constructor. In this place, I am assigning the value 10 and 15 to, I am passing this argument to this constructor, and I am assigning this 10 and 15 to x and y. Okay, so this is the input get from the user. So input get x, get y. Okay, so it will return the value of x and y. Okay, so p1.getx, p1.getY, it would return the, after assigning the values to x and y, it will return the values of x and y. Okay, then copy constructor. Here I am copying the value of one object to another object. Okay, so this is the difference. So I have created in demo class, demo is the class name. I have created object two objects here, object 1 and object 2. So object 1 I am passing two arguments. These two arguments are copied to object 2. Okay, this is called copy constructor. Okay, so what will happen once the object is created for a object 1 is created for a class, there are two arguments 10 and 20. This will be called first. Here the values are assigned. 10 and 20 will be assigned to number 1 and number 2. After that I am calling the second object. In the second object I am assigning the value of object 1 to object 2. Okay, so what will happen? So we cannot directly assign values to the another object. So what will happen here? I have given class name and address of that particular object. Okay, so then only we can assign that values to the second object. Okay, so here using this address I am accessing the value of n dot number 1, n dot number 2. That will be assigned to number 1 and number 2. Okay, the second object value assigned here. Okay, so object 1 will be assigned to object 2. Okay, so demo class oda ஒரு அதோட அட்ரஸை கெட் பண்ணி அந்த அட்ரஸோடு இருக்கிற வேல்யூவை ஃபெச் பண்ணி நம்ம செகண்ட் ஆப்ஜெக்ட்டுக்கு அசைன் பண்ணுறோம். ஓகேவா, திஸ் இஸ் வாட் காப்பி கன்ஸ்ட்ரக்டர். ஓகே, and one more thing is destructor. Destructor I will be explained later.